First, I want to thank Point 10 for having me here and for the chance I had to listen to you speak. Sulabh is quite a fantastic organization. And it's not always interesting to talk about toilets and sanitation, but it is a great problem in the country. And one of the best ways to solve the country's problems is to solve this one. So it takes 40 years to make that happen, and it has. And I didn't get to hear you speak, sir, but I imagine I would have just as much to say for you. And I know Madhu and I know Mr. Joshi. It's also great to be at this building because it's a famous building, and every time I come it makes me feel like I'm in an important place. But that said, I want this to be helpful to you. So I would like to spend a few minutes talking about social enterprise. And English is okay? Not an issue? Otherwise I can try to mix some Gujarati and Hindi, but it might be comical. Today, we run a social enterprise called Sarvjal that Akash mentioned. It also happened to be fortunate that Akash spent some time with us. Basically, let me give you the genesis of Sarvjal. I'm not a water expert. None of the people working in our organization are water experts, right? But the reason we do this is very simple. In 60 years of India's existence, we have not been able to get clean water to villages, just like we've not been able to get clean toilets to villages. It's not a complex problem. Everyone who lives in Ahmedabad drinks clean water. You get clean water out of a machine, you go outside here, there's an aqua guard, people get clean water. And so if the technology exists and clean water is possible, why can we not get it to people? It's a question. That question is what bothered people like me. If we have the technology, we have communication ability, we know how to travel, we can build machines, whatever it might be, why can we not provide clean water to people? And it turns out that if you spend some time thinking about this, there's a whole bunch of complex issues with this. Number one, just also to recognize the social impact of clean water. The estimate is between 65% and 90% of all disease in India is waterborne. So forget making medicines for diarrhea or malaria or whatever it might be. If you want to solve the health burden for the country, the biggest and best way to do it is to solve the water problem. Simple as that. It is the best medicine out there. The second issue is that the model that we think about, if we live in a city, let's say we're here in Ahmedabad and we get water, we expect water to come through a pipeline. Okay? What is behind a pipeline? If you look at the river, there's 12 French wells in this city. They pump water out and they move it into a big tank, and that tank gets pumped all the way across the city, and every house or building gets some sort of pipe which water comes for 2 hours every day. It's a very, very complex system. Lots and lots of work. Lots of roads are dug up, pipelines are put in, those pipelines are connected, some new house comes, they connect another pipeline, and if you looked at if there was a pipeline map of Ahmedabad, if you looked at it, it would be very, very complicated. Hey. And when the road breaks and they dig it up, somebody digs the pipe by accident, sorry, they bind it up with some string or something, put it back together, that's fine. In the summertime, it's not an issue. In the wintertime, it's not an issue. When it starts raining, it becomes an issue. You know why? Because in the cracks of the roads, dirty water from the rain actually seeps into it, and where that pipe was broken, and there's rope there, some more it seeps into it, and the next day you have people with jaundice and typhoid. Okay. This idea, big central systems of tanks and pipelines and get it to everyone's house, makes sense for cities. Why does it make sense for cities? Because lots and lots of people live in a small amount of space. In rural areas, it doesn't make any sense. Right? I want to give you one example of this as well. I had a chance to meet with the Chief Minister a few months ago to talk about this water project, and he gave me a very interesting fact here in Gujarat. It says, there's a pipeline from the Narmada Canal which reaches Kutch. Some of you guys may know this. A few years ago, they used to say this pipe is very big. Maruti 800 उसमें जा सकता है, इतना बड़ा पाइप है, right? शायद याद होगा. Anyone know कितना पैसा होता है पानी पहुंचाने के लिए? How much does it cost to get water to Kutch? Anyone have a guess? Per liter? Guess somebody. Fine, don't guess. Huh? It costs 14 rupees per liter. 14, 1-4, to get a bottle of water like this to Kutch through a pipeline. It's not cheap. In fact, it's cheaper to buy this bottle of water than to get water out of the pipe. There's a problem with that. Why should a gaon where there's 500 households build a big tanki, pump it to the tanki, then put a pipe, and then make sure each house, even if it's 8 kilometers this way and 3 kilometers that way, has a pipe? The country's growing. Tomorrow there's 500 villages, there may be 2,000 households. 2,000 households mein ghar banane ke liye kuch na kuch khodega. Those pipes will break. It doesn't make sense. So how do you solve that? That's the question, right? The question about social enterprise is, how do you solve a particular problem? Or if you're a little bit more creative, how do you create a solution that people may not have seen to improve life? Right? It's not always a problem that's obvious. To me, this is what defines social enterprise. Right? Social enterprise is not some business that also does some good. That's bakwas, in my opinion. Right? That's a sense of saying, okay, I want to do this, but so I'm popular and I'm trendy and whatever it might mean, so people like me and don't feel like I'm just out to make money, I'm doing some good also. Hey, forgive me for those that believe that's a good thing, but I don't feel like that's the real thing, right? Social problems in this country are problems because they're not easy to fix. That's the definition. Why is water still 60 years later not fixed? Why is sanitation still 60 years later not fixed? Why is helping farmers with information 60 years later still not fixed? It's not easy work. Hey, it's easy for me to take out of my paycheck 10% every month and give someone some money to feed them. That's easy. It's easy for me to go home and say, you know, I have an extra pair of clothes, I've donated it today. It's easy for me to say, you know, I sent someone a thank you note today that I would not have sent something otherwise. This is easy stuff. We people, as people, we like easy stuff. It's not. Don't confuse yourself. That's not social enterprise. The first rule is what you're trying to solve has to be a difficult problem. Right? And I want that to be clear, because that should be the test. The test should be, is this really a problem? Or, if you're creating something, is what I'm doing going to be valuable if I put the effort in to people more than me? There are many examples of things like that. Right? I'm sure some of them have been talked about here. Right? The pay-and-use toilet system, for instance, so it was a creative idea. How do I keep the toilet clean? How do I make it self-sustainable? I may be able to get the money up front, but maybe this will work. Maybe people will find the value and they'll pay 1 rupee every time they use it, or 50 paisa, or whatever it is. And you create something. But you know what? You don't look back until 30 years later and you say, kya hua? Hey, you don't test it and say, oh, I'm not hitting my targets, these sorts of things. Same thing in water. So let me give you more examples of this thought process, right? Again, like I said, I wasn't looking at water. I was trying to, the team of people that we were working with were trying actually to solve an energy problem. We wanted to find out how to get electricity to people in villages. Same problem, right? Power plants are big plants built in Mundra and built here and built there, and you have all these lines going up and down and over the street and below the street and this type of thing, and people get electricity. What's the best way to solve that? Generate electricity closer to the house. Okay, so instead of sending electricity 400 kilometers into the run of Kutch, why can't you just generate power there and give it to people? If it's solar, or if it's wind, or if it's biomass, or you connect it to a Sulabh Shauchalaya and it burns off of biogas, or whatever it might be. But it turned out that that business model wasn't going to work and nobody was ready to give us money, so okay. So we decided, what's the next biggest problem in the country? We were starting from the basics, right? Kapra, bijli, makan, pani. Right? Next problem is water. Can you use the same idea in water? Can you find a way to give people access to water in their village? Many villages have water, right? But today if I said, let's go on a field trip and let's go to Sabarkantha district, everybody will bring water with them. Ghar mein gaadi pack karke leke aayegi pani. right, in some sort of bottle. Why? Because you're going to be thirsty? No. Then you go to someone's house and you say politely, sorry. Why? It's water. You don't trust it. You don't know, will it make me sick? We are aware of this. There is water there, but it's not drinkable. So how can we solve that problem? Let's make it drinkable. How do people make it drinkable? If I live in Ahmedabad, what do? I put a machine in my house, or the society puts a machine in their house, in that building or whatever it might be, and I get a UV or whatever it might be, right? AquaGuard or RO or Tata Swatch or whatever it might be. Okay, so let's put a machine there. Right? Now what's the problem with that? Machines cost money. Who's going to pay for the machine? If you go to the government to pay for the machine, then the person installing the machine feels like, you know, theek hai, machine dal diya. We looked at all these people. There's lots of programs in the country where government gives a subsidy for a machine. But you know what that problem is? After 1 year, those machines aren't running. You know why they're not running? Because nobody thought about what you would do to keep them running. Machine dalna tha, machine dal diya. That's not the point. Machine dalne ka matlab kya tha? Log ko pani peena chahiye. So how do you incentivize to connect it with drinking of water? So we thought about this. Then the next problem was, there's a lot of political issues with water, right? Pani kaise bechega? Right? It's something that we all should, I feel that true, it's true. How do you sell people water? No one has a problem selling an AquaGuard, they have a problem selling water. Right? So we're not selling water, we're selling a water cleaning service. गांव का पानी है, गांव का पानी हम साफ कर रहे हैं. If you want it, you can get it. Otherwise, drink the water you have. No problem. The second problem with that is something we need to understand about water. I'm talking about a problem-solving piece here. So if you get lost, raise your hand and ask me a question. Right? Water is very heavy. Right? If you wanted to courier this bottle to Mumbai today, it would cost you 150 rupees because 1 liter is 1 kilo. Right? Or pani ka kimmat 150 rupees nahi hai. So how do you deal with this as an issue? You can't transport water cheaply. The best solution is to make it non-transported. Put it in the village somehow. So you don't want to take it from one village and move it to another village. So what do we try to figure out? How do we put the water in that village? So you buy your own water from your own village. There are a bunch of issues with this. How do you make sure that the person selling the water is incentivized correctly? And our feeling was, well, the best answer to all of these things was to make someone a franchisee. Right? Someone in that village earns their daily rojgari from selling of water. And not selling of water to a third party. Right? Selling of water to their neighbors. Padosi ko hi bechna hai. That's all it is. They're all people you know. Acha pani aapko peena chahiye. You suddenly have an ambassador. Right? You have a person in a village who says, you know, my self-worth, mera rojgari is from whether or not people drink water. What else do? We say, okay, we'll put the machine there for free. Expensive machine, it costs 2.5 lakhs. We put the machine there for free. And the only way we actually pay for the machine is people drink water. Right? Take it, we're patient. 3 saal lagega, 4 saal lagega to get the money back. Okay. Next problem. In villages, who's going to come and repair the machine? So we have to solve that problem. We came up with a service and maintenance mechanism where that is something that we're responsible for. Right? How are you going to collect money from the village? From a business perspective, गांव में आप फोगट में machine दे देंगे तो पैसा कौन देगा? So we're trying to solve that by using technology to make it prepaid, like a mobile phone. You want to use your phone, you have to pay 10 rupees to get a recharge. Same way, you want to sell water to the village, machine चलाने के लिए आपको पैसा देना पड़ेगा. And we send an SMS and the machine turns on. Right? It's all about solving problems. The key piece of social enterprise is that you're walking up a very, very big hill. Right? You need to find answers. It's not for people who don't want to do the work to find answers. It's very hard work. Try to find a franchisee in a village and you'll spend 3 months of your time going, how do I trust this person? How do I know if I give them a machine that they'll give it back? How do I know that this person is trustable in the village? How do you know he's not going to cheat the quality of water? All of these things are issues that have to be resolved. How do you resolve them? Many of those things are trial and error. In fact, that's often the case of social enterprise in general. We've done a lot of other social enterprises. Like we have a rural BPO in Rajasthan called Source for Change, which is only staffed by women. Right? Again, a very hard thing to do. This is in, Shekhawati, Marwadi area that is very conservative in its values. First day when we started, people came, marne ke liye aaye the, what are you doing? You're taking my daughter and wife and teaching her computers? Right? एक साल के बाद वही लोग आके they came with another person. They came with their daughter-in-law or their brother's wife and say, उनको भी नौकरी दे दो. But to do that, you had to work for a year, and you had to deal with people, throwing stones at you, gali dete, sab karte, theek hai. That's what we've come to do. Our purpose in that was we want to provide meaningful employment in villages that connects to the modern world, but specifically for women, because we think you can change families by employing women. We have another social enterprise that we've started called MobileNaukri, and its purpose is very simple. Right now, if you go to something like Naukri.com or any of these other organizations that do job searches, then it's all about urban jobs. Or it's urban people going to rural areas who use computers, or rural people coming to urban areas. Now what if I'm in a rural area and I want to work in a rural area? Where do I go? How do I know if there's a gaum in Sabarkantha that has a dairy that's looking for someone to work there, or someone that needs a driver, or someone that needs XYZ? So we're trying to build a system that does that. Right? We're trying to use technology on in terms of fancy new phones like iPhone and Android and all these things, to see if you can actually use that to deliver better services to villages in a smart way, like a computer. But all of it is to solve problems. Again, farmers don't have information on markets that can make them earn more, or they don't have information on weather, or people aren't able to get information on health services that are available, whatever that may be. Can you create some kind of service that does that? If you realize that social enterprise, or enterprise in any case, but particularly that with a social tint, is about solving problems, and everywhere you look there's some work to be done. That's rule number one, right? So I'm done with this phase. Now the second piece of this, okay, I have an idea, how do I make this happen? And that's actually, a good question. Many of us feel that we have to be beggars with an idea. We're full of ideas, but we have to go out and beg for people to support us and convince them that this is worthwhile and whatever it might be. Right? I'll give you my experience in this. The only way to convince people that your idea is worthwhile is to show people that it works. Right? So don't think grand, I'm going to go to somebody and say, I need 10 crore rupees so I can solve the water problem for everyone. Right? Go ask for 10 rupees and solve the water problem for one person. Then go to more people and say, I can do it for 10 more people. Yeah, I can do it for 10 more people, and 10 more people, and suddenly you end up at 100 million people in 5 years. Hey, every person that's done something like this has started small. Okay? And it's important to remember that. Great ideas, where Sulabh Shauchalaya started with one toilet somewhere, I'm sure. I don't know the actual story, but I'm sure it started with one toilet somewhere. Everyone started small. One of the problems with our generation right now is we live in a society where everything is big. Right? Somebody sold this company for 100 crores, and somebody sold this for 3,000 crores, and somebody got 10 crores in investment. Everybody thinks in crores only. Okay, so then we think, I should do a social enterprise. I'm 25 years old, or I'm 18 years old, or I'm 23 years old. Somebody should give me 5 of those 3,000 crores so I can start my thing. Yeah. Without work, money doesn't come for free. Let's be very clear about this. Right? But on the flip side, if you do good work, there's plenty of money. Everybody who has money is looking for someone they can trust. Right? The only way that they trust you is because you show that you have values, that you have persistence, you're willing to work hard, and you're in it for the long run. Right? Again, if Sulabh Shauchalaya said, "ठीक है, एक toilet बना दिया," right? I'm happy. No one would have given them money. But when they realize 10 years of work comes in and you've built not one, now you've built 100, someone says, look, these are the guys who have an answer and they've been working for it for 10 years or 30 saal tak kaam hi karega. That's a real enterprise, right? And I again want this to be clear, you know. I want to compare this. If I want to be a software engineer, I'm happy taking a job at Infosys TCS and I'll work there for 30 years. I'll move up and someday I'll become a manager of some kind. We think of careers in that way, right? This is just as much a career as anything else. Trust me, it's harder and more important work than anything that TCS does. No offense to TCS. But if you're not ready to do it for 10 years or 15 years or 20 years to show people that you're willing to solve a problem, you're not a social entrepreneur, right? You're a trend follower. Oh, अच्छी बात है, मैं करता हूँ, ठीक है, 3 साल तक करेगा, then I'll go get my MBA in America, उसके बाद TCS पे काम. Don't come talk to me then, you know. I am looking for people, the country needs people, the world needs people who are willing to commit large amounts of time and a good amount of their brain to solving problems. That's a true social entrepreneur, in my mind. Okay? So this is key, right? It's hard work. It requires long-term vision. It requires a mindset of being able to solve a problem or create something that generates value for other people. It requires commitment that says that I'm there, I'm going to do this, whether it succeeds or fails. I give you examples. Even in Sarvjal, you know, a year and a half ago, not even, a year and 3 months ago, everything fell apart. I had 10 people and 12 franchisees and everybody quit. It was just me. And one more person. Right? And we started over. And we started over saying, you know what, we're going to find a solution to this water problem. And we found, you know, now we're back to 65 or 70 people working for us. We're 130 franchisees. It's growing. You know, the difference between it growing and failing was my commitment, or the commitment of the people on my team, some of whom are here. That's all it is. You know, 1 year is not a long time. 5 years from now, you see the value. It's important that you recognize that you can never judge it in the midst of it. Right? So that's the next step. Now there's still a question. I don't know what the question is, but let's say my last piece of this is, okay, fine. Money is there if I work hard. You know, I understand I need to work for a long time. I understand I need to be a problem solver. How do I get started? Well, there are a lot of people that will help you get started. There are people like me who you could ask. I promise you, if you went to any of the organizations that spoke here and said, I'm a young person who wants to spend the next 10 years of my life finding an answer to this problem, everyone will help you. But if you say I'm a young person that wants an internship for 3 weeks and then I'm going to go on to whatever school, I would even say to you, please, you know, here, go do this and come back. Hey, if you're serious about it, you show it. You go to people who have walked the same path you have. I was also 20 years old not too long ago. So was everyone else. Hey, they all thought just like you did. I want to solve a problem. I can do something like this. They built on the shoulders. You know, Gandhiji used to say that one generation builds on the shoulders of the next. So they have the benefit of being able to see further. We've done as much as we can. The next generation will stand on our shoulders and do more. People like us want to invest in people like you, no matter what it costs. But the only thing we want in return is some feeling that here is someone that if I invest in them will do something great. By great meaning something for society. And that, my first step opinion would be that, you know, formulate your idea, if you have one. Start testing it. Make sure that your idea is strong, right? That it will actually work. Even if you don't do it for real, test it with people in conversation. See what people say. See what different kinds of people say. Then come find people like us and say, hey, I really have this idea. I really think it can work. It's really valuable. Get some feedback. And if you need help, you know, I'll be the first to commit saying, I will help you as well. And I'm sure that many of the others will. And I'm sure that people like Point 10 who have created themselves because of this will also help. But all you need to start is the will to work on it. And some of you might say, well, I need to get paid and I need to do whatever. And I'll be really honest with you, some type of sacrifice is required. Right? If it means 3 months I don't get paid, it means 3 months I don't get paid. It means 3 months I eat idli every day in the morning because it cost me 3 rupees and that's all I eat for 3 months. Fine. Okay. If you need more than that to start, then what are you going to do when a really hard problem comes? What are you going to do when, the district collector comes and says you're doing something ridiculous and puts you in jail? Then what are you going to do? You're going to run away? Okay? The easy problems are the teething problems. The real problems come later. We deal with all kinds of stuff. We have franchisees breaking machines, people threatening to sue us, people beating up our people. We get stuck in Madhya Pradesh. The last week we had 3 machines get taken by the sales tax guy and 1 in 5 lakh rupees. We had people running around trying to figure out how to solve that problem. This is what it takes. The number of types of problems resolved in 1 day's worth of time of being a social entrepreneur is more problems than you'll solve in 2 months worth of doing a normal job. But that's what makes it great. That's what makes it enriching. You have to want it. So those are my suggestions. I hope that's helpful. But I'd love to spend a few minutes answering questions.